Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to unpack a pretty weird bias in the job market, one that hits some of the most innovative people out there, former startup founders. It's a strange little paradox that shows you a really puzzling side of how big companies hire.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with the question that gets to the heart of this whole thing. When you think about a former startup founder, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it innovation? Maybe grit? Or is it just plain risk? So put yourself in the shoes of a hiring manager for a second. You've got two resumes on your desk for a software engineering job. Both candidates are former founders, they've got similar experience. The only real difference, one's company was a huge success. The other one, well, it failed. Who are you going to call for an interview?
Well, the answer is probably not what you think. Believe it or not, research from Harvard Business Review found that the successful founder is actually 33% less likely to even get an interview. Yeah, you heard that right. And this right here, it just perfectly illustrates the paradox we're talking about today. The penalty isn't about being good at your job, it's about something else entirely.
This whole thing has a name. It's called the entrepreneurship penalty. It's basically a term for this systematic bias where companies, even though they say they want innovation, end up filtering out the very people who've already proven they can build something from nothing.
And look, this isn't just a hunch or a few anecdotes. The numbers are pretty stark. Research from the London Business School shows that founders are 35% less likely to get an interview invite, period. In a Rutgers University study, it found that a staggering 60% of recruiters just react less favorably when they see a founder's resume.
So what gives? Why does this happen? What exactly are hiring managers so afraid of? Well, it pretty much boils down to 5 core concerns, which, honestly, when you really look at what startup life is like, are just myths. So let's break them down one by one.
First up, the authority issue. The biggest fear is that someone who's used to being the boss, the one calling all the shots, won't be able to handle reporting to a manager or, following the rules, that they'll just go rogue. But here's the thing. Building a startup isn't a dictatorship. It's a masterclass in collaboration. I mean, think about it. Founders are constantly trying to persuade investors, win over customers, and rally their own team, usually without any formal corporate power to back them up. Their very survival depends on getting everyone on the same page.
Okay, next up is the dreaded ego. The worry, right, is that a former founder is going to walk in, act like they're still the CEO, and just wreck the team dynamic because they can't handle not being the top dog anymore.
But this fear might actually say more about the company's culture than it does about the candidate. You really have to wonder, if your company is threatened by someone who's confident and has a ton of experience, maybe the problem isn't the founder's ego. Maybe your organization just isn't ready for the kind of change it says it wants.
All right, then you've got the flight risk myth. This is the idea that you're just a temporary pit stop, that this serial entrepreneur is just collecting a paycheck while they secretly plot their next big thing on your company's time.
But the data? It actually flips this whole idea on its head. A study out of Australia found that in that first job, right after their startup closes, founders are actually less likely to quit and start something new. That time is often a period of seeking stability, not a launch pad for the next big adventure.
And of course, we got to talk about the money. Hiring managers assume a former founder is going to walk in the door demanding a CEO-level salary and a massive chunk of equity that's just totally out of line for the role.
But come on, after years of financial chaos and probably eating way too much ramen, you know what a lot of founders really crave? Stability. A nice, predictable paycheck can be an incredibly powerful motivator. This isn't some huge, insurmountable obstacle. It's just a conversation you need to have openly and honestly during the hiring process.
And finally, myth number 5, the skills argument. This is the idea that a founder who's had to do everything from marketing to coding to literally taking out the trash is just too much of a generalist to fit into a specialized corporate job.
And that's a fair point, but it also completely misses the opportunity. That jack-of-all-trades experience, that is precisely what makes founders perfect for the kinds of jobs that need to connect all the different parts of a company. We're talking product management, strategy, business development. They can speak everyone's language because they've had to.
Now, it's important to know this penalty isn't the same for everyone. The data gets really interesting when you look at it through a gender lens. You see, research actually shows that after a venture ends, male founders tend to show a drop in their desire to jump right back into another startup. But female founders, they don't show that same dip. It suggests that those flight risk assumptions might be tangled up with gender, and that the motivations for men and women after a startup can be really different.
And it's not just about gender. The industry you're in matters. A lot. It's probably no surprise that the tech world, which kind of shares that entrepreneurial DNA, is way more open to hiring former founders. But as you can see here, more traditional industries like finance or manufacturing are a lot more cautious, which tells you they often prefer sticking to rigid processes over bringing in potentially disruptive talent.
And all of this, it brings us to the ultimate irony. We have all seen this quote, right? It's on the company careers page, you hear it from the CEO at a town hall. Corporations are constantly talking about how much they want an entrepreneurial spirit. They want to be nimble, they want to innovate, they want to think like a startup. And yet, their actions tell a totally different story. They say they want that spirit, but 60% of their recruiters are actively screening those people out. It's a textbook case of do as I say, not as I do.
So this all leads to one final, really crucial question. What is the actual risk here? Is it hiring one person, a founder, who might challenge how things are done? Or is the bigger risk having a company culture that's so fragile it can't handle the exact kind of person who could push it forward? What you decide might just change how you look at the next resume that lands on your desk.